Americans are generating approximately 230 tons of waste each day, which is about 4.6 pounds per person per day. Annenberg Learning Foundation estimates 70% of waste entering landfills could have been recycled or reused with little forethought while preserving virgin sources. Recycling efforts concerning metal, paper, and glass are also becoming standard service. These items have been selected to address on a large scale because infrastructure has been developed and deployed which has proven to break down paper and plastic, and also melt down glass and metal to essentially recreate raw materials from post-consumer products. Efforts to recycle on a more macro level become more and more feasible as the free market allows innovators to sort and process recyclables from waste more efficiently. Other materials commonly found in trash cans could also be repurposed for the greater good of mankind, specifically organic and carbon-based rubbish, like food waste. Strategies concerning repurposing food waste are more than just novel concepts. Composting efforts have been in practice on a small scale since before documented history. The New York Times states that in 2009, more than 30 million tons of food waste entered the landfill system. According to the Farming Magazine, in the U.S., about 1/4 of the food produced for human consumption is thrown away and is costing Americans about $1 billion a year to dispose of it. The Apex landfill of North Las Vegas receives more garbage each day than any other landfill in the U.S. According to Business Weekly, the largest landfill in the U.S. by daily tons of trash received is the Las Vegas Apex landfill, which narrowly beats Los Angeles Punette Hills. In Las Vegas, many businesses, specifically the mega resorts and casinos, are participating in efforts to redirect specific items to the path to the landfill by reprocessing or recycling. Mega resorts owned by Caesars Entertainment and MGM Resorts have begun to take a proactive approach to limiting their contributions to the local landfills. In 2010, MGM Resorts recycled 33.2% of their garbage, and the newer properties owned by MGM seem to be more capable of implementing recycling strategies, as the new city center recycles 55.2% of all waste generated. Innovative agriculture applications are currently emerging in cities such as Las Vegas. For example, the mega resorts of Sin City are paying RC Farms of North Las Vegas to sort their waste while processing the food scraps to become hog feed, a process commonly referred to as garbage feeding. RC Farms processed 600 to 800 tons of food waste each month during the year of 2009. The mission statement of RC Farms: produce more protein and reduce pollution by feeding livestock mostly recyclable commodities. In doing this, we are addressing two of humanity's concerns. Through recycling, we are assisting in one aspect of God's greatest creation, life. At first glance, garbage feeding seems like the way of the future. Why would we throw away perfectly good animal feed, and why hasn't anyone else done this on a large scale before? Upon further investigation, it turns out garbage feeding is a term used to describe the feeding of post-consumer food waste containing meat garbage or scraps to swine, and the practice is not new or innovative at all. It is actually illegal in 21 states. Meat garbage is defined as all waste material derived in whole or in part from the meat of any animal, including pork itself. Many animal diseases, including classical swine fever, African swine fever, foot and mouth disease, hog cholera, and swine vascular disease, have been spread by feeding raw garbage or infected food waste derived from meat products to swine. A number of pathogens can also be transmitted, along with intestinal parasites such as roundworm and tapeworms. According to the California Department of Food and Agriculture and Farming magazine, the swine garbage feeding regulations are currently a direct result of a past occurrence of swine vesicular eczema, and it's spread by garbage feeding. The regulations were written in 1954 following 20 years of unsuccessful attempts to eradicate this disease. These concerns are real, and the possible repercussions are potentially catastrophic. Diseases such as foot and mouth can become airborne and spread rapidly to adjacent livestock facilities. This has recently occurred in the United Kingdom. In 2001, a licensed garbage feeding facility experienced one of the worst foot and mouth disease outbreaks in history. The origin of the outbreak was from the feed provided to the swine. Foot and mouth disease was spread to the other facilities when pigs were transported and sold to other farms. The disease also went airborne, infecting an adjacent sheep farm. Before all was said and done, more than 2,000 cases of foot and mouth disease were confirmed, and over 6 million animals were culled to stop its spread. At this point, one should wonder, if garbage feeding is such a bad thing, why is it still legal in 29 states and not federally outlawed? Remedies for killing bacteria and disease in food allocated for animal consumption resemble strategies for preparing food for human consumption. You cook it. All sources investigated state the same course of action for treating the scraps. The food scraps containing or have had post-contact with meat must be heated to a temperature above 212 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 30 minutes before the garbage is fit for swine consumption. In addition to heating, agitation is also required to ensure all materials heated thoroughly and disinfected. So when regulations are followed, garbage feeding is not really that big of a deal. For example, in Missouri, a 1-year garbage feeding permit can be obtained by submitting a $25 application fee to the Missouri Department of Agriculture. The department will perform an inspection of the equipment and the premises before issuing the permit. Once the permit is issued, the farmer must keep records of all daily cooking temperatures of the garbage for at least 90 days. RC Farms of Las Vegas does comply with federal and state mandated garbage feeding guidelines by heating and agitating the food waste. This food waste was generated at the mega resorts on the Strip of Las Vegas and shipped to the farm. Heating and stirring food kills bacteria and disease for the swine, just as this process is common for pasteurization of food for human consumption. RC Farms also impacts the Las Vegas area in other ways. Hog farms generate foul odors. Residential housing, small businesses, and 2 elementary schools share property lines with RC Farms. Lawsuits concerning the odor are common stories in the Las Vegas newspapers. Home buyers are suing builders like Atlanta-based Brazier Homes Holding Corporation, claiming the non-disclosure of pig farming operations and odors associated with the neighborhood before or at the time of sale. The owner of RC Farms, Bob Combs, was quoted as saying, "You work at it, getting the odors down, and they just move closer." When Bob Combs first started RC Farms in 1962, the city of Las Vegas was nowhere in sight. The property was surrounded by desert. In 1962, the Combs family got state permission to have pigs on the 40 acres, which was then far away from any housing. They argue the permit also allows them to keep livestock on an additional 80 acres acquired in 1977. Recent suburban sprawl has virtually encapsulated the once isolated farm. Developers have offered an unverified $70 million for the family farm, but Bob Combs isn't in this line of work to get rich. Bob is set out to be an example of long-term sustainability. Strategies exist which would allow Bob to extract a second stage of energy from the food scraps which he was paid to take from the mega resorts. I would suggest Bob Combs look into a methane digester. This technology encapsulates the animal excrement in a rubber bladder, suppressing the stench while generating a natural usable methane gas. This captured greenhouse gas could be used locally on the farm or to power a methane gas to electric generator which produces electricity. This electricity could be sold back to the electric grid for profit or used on the farm to offset consumption. Danny Cluth of Dodge, Nebraska has already deployed this technology on his pig farm. Mr. Cluth's operation is approximately twice the size of RC Farms, as Cluth keeps around 7,500 pigs on site at all times. Cluth has a 14-foot deep metal tank which houses the manure and suppresses the stench. Bacteria and heat are added to the tank to start an anaerobic process which releases methane gas. This methane gas is then treated and sent to a Caterpillar brand propane methane generator which produces electricity. Enough electricity for approximately 80 homes. Cluth also uses the gas on site to offset the need for natural gas or propane at the farm. NPPD purchases the excess electricity generated at the farm at wholesale prices, as this farm has its own energy company, and the methane-depleted manure is then used as fertilizer for growing crops, restarting the carbon cycle. This technology has already been introduced into the Las Vegas equation at least once. Apex Landfill of North Las Vegas has broke ground on an 11 megawatt plant, which is enough electricity to power 9,600 average American households. The project will begin by encapsulating 50 million tons of garbage and drilling 36 wells 300 feet deep. The methane extracted from the heap will be processed and fed to two 5.5 megawatt Solar Centra 60 combustion turbine jet engines. This project has created 25 jobs and 3 permanent positions for the area. Encapsulating the heap captures 60 to 90% of the methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas. The greenhouse gas offset attributed to the project will be equivalent to removing 18 million average American passenger vehicles. So the point is, small innovations in waste management can reduce waste entering the landfills and create jobs, while prolonging life of existing infrastructure. Bob Combs, the owner of RC Farms, has made a lifelong effort to become an example of how one can put sustainability first and make money from another man's trash. When forging the way with your own ideas, such as Bob's, issues such as pasteurization and odor suppression will arise. After all, the scraps are perfectly fine to feed to the livestock as long as they have been properly processed or cooked. Strategies do exist for odor suppression, although it's suspected that Bob isn't too worried about his new neighbors, as he has been in the same location for 50 years. Bob was originally way outside the city limits and away from any housings or buildings. Las Vegas came to him. The folks buying homes adjacent to the farm knew of this pre-existing condition, so what real right do they have to complain?